Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome into Machine Heads from CompactEquipment.com. If you love construction equipment and love talking about construction equipment, then you're in the right place. We don't just talk horsepower and basic specs here on Machine Heads. We dig deep, detailing the why and how behind the features and improvements pushing the latest compact equipment forward. Basically all of the great stuff that you've come to expect from Compact Equipment Magazine. So, as the owner of a compact track loader, you've got the Swiss Army knife of construction equipment. The do-it-all, go-anywhere, multi-talented tool carrier on 2 tracks. Truthfully, the compact track loader has outgrown its name. These are no longer just loaders. They are versatile tool carriers that become whatever the job needs them to become. Now, in the North American market, we typically use these machines for multiple purposes, loading and whatever we're using the attachment for. But CTLs have become so good at those other jobs and so productive that in other markets around the world, there are CTLs in use as dedicated cold planers, dedicated trenchers, graders, etc. But you're looking to unlock even more use and revenue out of your CTL by doing some land clearing or land management work, which most likely means that you're looking to upgrade to or invest in a new drum mulcher. Now, because of its versatility, the drum mulcher has become the centerpiece of just about any land management operation. But how do you go about picking the right drum mulcher for your needs? Now, like any high flow hydraulic attachment, a lot of it comes down to having the right CTL to begin with. Here's what you need to know. Now, like the CTL, the drum mulcher itself is a Swiss Army knife. At the heart of the drum mulcher is a spinning drum full of sharp teeth or blades. Now, this drum can be lifted and lowered by your CTL, enabling you to process just about any brush or vegetation that you're looking at bringing down, from high grass and other small material all the way up to medium-sized trees upwards of 12 and even 16 inches in diameter. Plus, this attachment allows you to either blow and go, just get what's standing up down on the ground before moving on, or with another pass, the drum can suck all of that material on the ground back up and process it further, allowing you to mulch that material into a much finer finish. Now, drum mulchers come in different sizes ranging anywhere from 59 inches in cutting width all the way up to 84 inches, and they offer differing features such as variable torque motors, load sensing motors, hydraulic deflectors, and bite limiters. But generally, the way manufacturers of these attachments segregate their lineups is based on the machine that you'll be mating the mulcher to. Now, the good news is that no matter the size or power of your compact loader, there is a drum mulcher for you. The real difference between all of the available models, as is often the case with construction equipment in general, it's going to be productivity. How much can you get done in as little time as possible with this tool? But as a rule, the dividing line for mulching is a Host CTL with 75 horsepower. If the CTL you're looking to mulch with is a 75 horsepower or below machine, you can outfit it with a drum mulcher that will be productive enough for light or occasional mulching. But if you're looking to do full-time mulching, or you know that you want your mulcher to be able to handle no matter what Mother Nature throws at you in as little time as possible, you need a CTL with engine power north of 75 horsepower. For instance, Loftness's Battle Axe lineup offers 2 sizes of mulcher, the light L series and the standard S series. Light drum mulchers are meant to be paired with a machine in the range of 30 to 70 horsepower. The standard Battle Axe, on the other hand, is meant to be paired with a machine in the 50 to 150 horsepower range. Yanmar construction equipment brand ASV delineates its lineup in a very simple fashion. ASV offers the SD series and the DC series of forestry mulchers. Now, each of those have 2 models in them. However, these models, all 4 of them, are only designed for use with ASV's 67 horsepower RT65 CTL or above. And ASV even notes that it recommends the RT75 as a 50-50 or 70-30 mulching split, with the machine being used 30% of the time as a mulcher in that 70-30 split. Now, if you're going to do full-time forestry work, ASV recommends moving up to the 132 horsepower RT135 machines. Now, we're going to talk a little bit here about the reason that engine horsepower matters so much when it comes to hydraulic flow-hungry attachments. That reason is hydraulic horsepower. Now, you can find your machine's hydraulic horsepower rating with the use of an equation, and it's pretty simple. We are going to do a little bit of math here, but hang with me. But the equation is hydraulic pressure, your machine's hydraulic pressure in PSI, multiplied by your machine's hydraulic flow in gallons per minute. You multiply those two, and then you divide the answer by 1,714. Now, after looking at that equation, you're probably wondering, where's engine horsepower? How does that factor in? The way that engine horsepower factors in is that hydraulic horsepower, that rating, can never exceed an engine's ability. So whatever your machine's hydraulic horsepower is, it will always be less than whatever the horsepower rating is. That's because while your engine is powering the hydraulics, it's also powering the fan, the alternator, the AC, and so on. So if your hydraulic horsepower can never exceed your engine's ability, and it's pulling way more than double duty, you're gonna want as much engine horsepower as you can get if you're going to be using attachments that require a lot of hydraulic horsepower. You want the maximum engine horsepower to ensure that in addition to the fan, alternator, etc., that the engine has enough headroom to provide the power needed through the hydraulic system to transfer all of the available power that's not being used by those other things directly to the mulcher. All right, so let's use the ASV RT135 as an example. Now this machine delivers up to 4,060 psi. When you multiply that by its max flow of 50 GPM, you get 203,000. When you divide that by 1,714, you get 118, which is exactly the amount of hydraulic horsepower that the RT135's engine can provide. And that means that while the RT135 provides 132 total horsepower, 118 of that 132 can be sent directly to the hydraulics, while that remaining power is used for everything else on the machine while you're operating your drum mulcher. So as we outlined just a bit ago, the equation for hydraulic horsepower is hydraulic pressure times hydraulic flow. So because hydraulic flow is such a major part of that equation, some lineups refer directly to the flow rather than machine horsepower when they're kind of suggesting which machine you should mate a drum mulcher to. Caterpillar, for instance, offers a wide variety of drum mulchers, and its model numbers indicate their capability. And for the most part, Caterpillar uses hydraulic flow as the barometer for what you should be using to mate these models with a particular machine with. Now, for example, the HM115 in the Caterpillar lineup breaks down like this. The 1 at the front of that model number means that it is a standard flow mulcher. The 15 at the end indicates that it can achieve a 1.5 meter cut. Meanwhile, there's the 200 models, which are high flow models. The 300 models require CAT's high flow XPS CTLs, which provide up to 32 gallons per minute. And the 400 models require XHP or XE hydraulics that provide up to 40 gallons per minute. So that is the way that Caterpillar outlines its lineup. It uses GPM or gallons per minute of hydraulic flow. All right, so let's talk a little bit about another consideration that you need to have in mind whenever it comes to mating a particular drum mulcher with a particular machine, because honestly, not all CTLs are equipped the same. If you know you're going to be doing a lot of mulching and other land management or forestry work higher than that 50-50 split, it's really important to start with a properly equipped, high horsepower, high flow capable CTL with that right amount of cooling and protection from flying debris. A good rule to keep in mind is this: a forestry spec CTL can always do dirt work, but a dirt spec CTL isn't always an efficient match for forestry applications due to that sheer amount of hydraulic horsepower and, crucially, hydraulic cooling that these forestry spec machines have available. For instance, ASV's forestry machines have cooling packages that can take 100% load 100% of the time, all the way up to 118 degrees. Now, aftermarket roof-mounted coolers for dirt spec machines are an available option for you to use after the fact, but regardless, it's really important to consider your machine's hydraulic cooling capability as a major part of your kind of considerations when it comes to picking a drum mulcher to use. Now, another good example of this is the 400 model drum mulchers from Caterpillar. These are designed specifically for the company's top of the line 299 D3 XE CTL that comes equipped with a debris package and auxiliary coolers. Now, another good rule of thumb to go by beyond horsepower is that if you want to be competitive in mulching, the minimum in terms of machine spec you'll want to consider is a CTL with at least 36 gallons per minute of hydraulic flow and 3,500 PSI. But you also want proper cab protection. Drum mulchers dive headfirst into debris-filled environments, and they whip chunks of vegetation, wood, and sometimes rocks that are hiding beneath all of that vegetation. They whip those things around at high speed. Sometimes that stuff leaves the drum footprint, and you want to make sure that you have a polycarbonate door and windows and proper guarding to protect yourself while you operate, but also a machine with the proper ROPS and structure protection as well. The other big consideration to make when it comes to drum mulchers is teeth. Drum mulchers are typically offered with 3 types of tooth options: carbide, flat blade, and pointed blade. So let's talk about how each of these tooth types really work. Carbide teeth are really popular because they do a great job at bringing material down while also boasting a long wear life with little to no maintenance. Now, carbide teeth basically just beat material into submission. And because they knock the material down rather than cutting them, the end result is processed material with a really kind of stringy consistency. But let's say you want a finer material for use as landscape mulch or just material that's going to decompose on the ground a lot faster. You can achieve that with carbide teeth, but with most mulchers, you're going to have to back over that material and drag the drum through it a second time to kind of make sure that that material is going back through the drum to break it down a bit more. So in general, the downside to carbide teeth is that if you want finer material, you have to spend a little bit more time and a few more passes to achieve it. But that's where chisel or knife teeth come in. These teeth are sharp, hence the knife name. They bite into material, cut into it like a sharp axe, and instead of beating it apart, they cut vegetation into finer material. Flat blade teeth are best at turning vegetation into neat, uniform sized chips, while the pointed knife teeth are helpful in splitting through tough, fibrous material. Now, the downside to these sharp knife-like teeth is that, like an axe or a knife, they need to be sharpened regularly to remain effective. So that sharpening is something that you're going to need to work into your maintenance routine. If you don't want to worry about sharpening, then carbide teeth are the way to go. Now, the final major component of drum mulchers you'll need to consider is whether you're going to go with an open drum design or a bite limiter design. An open drum means there is nothing between the drum, that spinning drum, and the vegetation that you're going after. In most cases, this open drum design is going to give you the most knockdown power and the quickest result in terms of getting vegetation on the ground because, again, there's nothing stopping the drum mulcher from taking as much material on as it can. Now, a bite limiter or a depth control ring, on the other hand, does just as the name suggests. It limits the amount of material that is being fed into the drum. And a bite limiter can be useful for those new to operating a drum mulcher because it actually keeps the attachment from taking on too much material and then stalling out whenever it becomes overwhelmed. Now, when it comes to trees, the bite limiter is limiting the amount that the teeth can drive into the material. And in viney or brush type material, it makes sure that the attachment moves slowly through that material and processes it so that it doesn't overwhelm the drum and, like we said earlier, stall out. Another aspect of this bite limiter conversation is the teeth that you combine the bite limiter with. Now, a bite limiter or depth control ring design drum is typically paired with chisel or knife teeth, as those teeth are sharper and therefore can eat through material more quickly than those carbide teeth. In other words, because these teeth can process material so quickly, a bite limiter can be a good idea to make sure that you're not taking on too much material or even cutting through stuff too quickly. Now, carbide teeth, on the other hand, because they basically knock material down and are a little bit slower in processing that material and do it a little bit more gradually, these are usually mated with open drum mulchers. And this is a good point to mention the design of the Loftness Battle Axe drum mulchers. All of Loftness's Battle Axe mulchers have a bite limiter, or as Loftness calls it, a depth gauge. So every one of their mulchers comes with this depth gauge. Loftness says it does that because what sets its depth gauge apart from the typical ring style bite limiter is that they aren't overly limiting. And that allows them to be used effectively with either knife or carbide teeth. Now, because of this, the Battle Axe mulchers benefit from a 2-stage cutting chamber. And this 2-stage cutting chamber basically has shear bars on the top and rear of the drum. So the kind of bite limiter or depth gauge design is really pulling double duty here. So it's not only, limiting the amount of material that can get into the drum, it's also keeping the material in that drum longer. And because the material spins around the drum a little bit longer, this means that with a Battle Axe, you can actually use those carbide teeth and get finer produced material after one pass than you would without this 2-stage chamber. So what we mentioned earlier basically with the carbide teeth is that, it knocks the stuff down and then you've got to pull back over it to reprocess that material. Because these shear bars are on the top and rear of the drum, they actually keep that material in there longer without you having to do the final pass. So it really gives you the best of both worlds. You get carbide teeth, but you also get finer reduced material. So for those who want a set it and forget it option with carbide teeth and little to no maintenance but finer mulch, the Battle Axe is definitely worth a look. All right guys, that's going to wrap things up for our in-depth look at what you need to know before buying a drum mulcher for your compact track loader. We hope the information in the video was helpful, and if it was, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and the like button. Be sure to subscribe to the Compact Equipment YouTube channel. Those things really help us out in bringing you more videos like this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. We always appreciate the time. We'll see you in the next one.